A slew of changes coming in at the 32nd meeting of the GST Council today. This is the final huddle before the interim budget, or so we believe, which takes place on the 1st of February. The MSME sector has got big relief as the Council hiked the composition scheme limit to 1.5 crore rupees from 1 crore rupees. This is effective from the 1st of April. The Council also approved annual returns and quarterly tax payment under the composition scheme. Also, the limit for services has been set at 50 lakhs and the GST rate at 6%. While the Council could not reach a decision on the real estate sector due to the lack of consensus, the matter has now been referred to a group of ministers, along with the matter related to what to do with lottery rates. So, no significant rate rationalisation, none was expected today. The Finance Minister making it clear that further rate rationalisation will depend on the revenue mobilisation. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on our special show, Eye on India, where we take stock of the decisions announced by the GST Council today. I'm Shereen Bhan. Here's the Finance Minister ruling out further rate cuts till there is an increase in revenue. Remember, after crossing the 1 lakh crore rupee mark for September, GST collection figures have seen a decline both in the months of October and November. Take a look.
अब दो प्रकार की एग्जेम्पशन लिमिट्स होंगी। पहली वाली का स्लैब 40 लाख होगा, यानी कि जो 20 लाख था उसको डबल कर दिया गया है, और जो इन छोटे राज्यों के लिए जो 10 लाख की लिमिट थी उसको 20 लाख पे रखा गया है। वी विल कंसिडर एनी फर्दर रिडक्शंस ऑन इंडिविजुअल आइटम्स ओनली व्हेन रेवेन्यूज मूव अप।
Well, that's the Finance Minister, and here's Revenue Secretary Ajay Bhushan Pandey on the revenue picture and how it stacks up currently and whether that leaves room for any further rate rationalisation.
Any further rate reduction will be decided only after watching the revenue for the next few months. You know, how revenue, matter is stabilized.
So where are you on the shortfall right now? Last question.
No, I mean in the sense this shortfall
Last time you indicated 60 to 70 approximate.
No. See, the question is that shortfall with respect to what? So I mean,
GST.
right. So the next 3 months the revenue is already, we are in the process. Every month we used to get around 98,000 crores so far the GST overall was concerned. In the month of December we got around 95,000 crores. So let us see during the next 3 months in which direction our revenue goes, and then any decision about the rate reduction will arrive.
Well, that's the Revenue Secretary there saying that they hope that they will make up the shortfall currently being seen in GST collections tracking under the asking rate of 1 lakh crore rupees a month. Joining us now on the show, Manpreet Singh Badal, Finance Minister of Punjab, Mahender Singh, former member GST at the CBEC, and Uday, Pimprikar, partner national leader indirect tax at EY India. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Mr. Badal, if I could start by asking you, rate rationalisation was not something that was expected in the meeting of the Council today, and the Finance Minister seems to be indicating that it's unlikely that rates will be touched till revenues improve. Now, does that mean till we see revenues hitting 1 lakh crore rupees consistently over the next few months? There's not much time left before the Code of Conduct and the elections sort of start to kick in. So what should we realistically now expect as far as rate rationalisation is concerned?
I think the major problem with the GST design, which has been designed in India, is not a problem of rate, Shereen. It's a problem of compliance and, and the enormity of, the scale of compliances which are required. That, a small trader has to have a computer, he has to have an accountant, and compliance is not happening. That is the worry. This is something which we need to fix.
Okay.
Not the rates. The rates can actually go down, but the compliance problems are something which are hindering tax collection in India. Okay,
so you're saying compliance is the bigger worry and the bigger challenge, not rates as much. But on the issue of compliance, and several decisions have been taken today to try and address the compliance issues for small traders as well as for the MSME sector. I want to quote to you what your colleague in the GST Council, Hemanta Biswa Sarma, has tweeted. He said the proposal for increasing the threshold limit for GST registration exemption was up to 75 lakhs or at least 50 lakhs annual turnover. Congress ministers, including AAP, resisted. Rahul Gandhi must explain why he is against small traders. For the benefit of our viewers, that threshold is now either the option given to states is 20 lakhs or 40 lakh rupees. What happened, Mr. Badal?
Well, Shereen, this matter was discussed at a group of ministers level where Mr. Sushil Modi was the chairman. I think Mr. Biswas is playing petty politics. What was discussed at the level of group of ministers was a threshold limit, anything between 40 to 50.
Okay.
And that's exactly what was recommended, and that's what the council has adopted. How the 75 lakh actually crept into the agenda, because this was not discussed at the group of ministers, and in fact the entire council actually raised serious issues as how come agenda creeps into proposals creep into an agenda which were never discussed.
Okay.
And who was the interested party who put in the 75 lakh proposal? It was never discussed. It was never on the table. And I think Mr. Biswas is just playing petty politics over it.
Okay, okay. So just by way of clarification, if you can explain to us, the option has been given to states either go with 20 as the threshold for registration for goods or 40. So it cannot be something in between.
No, in fact, the previous position was that the previous threshold limit was 10 for smaller states and 20 for bigger states.
Yeah.
So now the new proposal is 20 for smaller states and 40 for larger states. Within 1 week of this meeting, each state has to indicate whether they want to be either at 20 or 40. So I think we will all go back to our respective cabinets, seek the directions of our cabinet, and whatever is decided, either 40 or, but you can't be in between. That's for sure.
Okay, that's for sure, and that clarification coming in. Let me go across to Mr. Mahender Singh, recently retired from the CBEC. Mr. Singh, thanks very much for joining us. Do you believe with the measures announced today, sir, that a significant amount of the compliance-related issues, worries, concerns, burden have now been meaningfully addressed? Or do you believe that more needs to be done?
Actually, government's focus has been to give relief to the MSME. Where there was a big compliance issue with the MSME, they are small traders, and they have to incur extra cost for complying with the provisions of law. So this is a big relief. The exemption limit, the threshold limit has been increased from 20 lakhs to 40 lakhs and from 10 lakhs to 20 lakhs for special category states.
Yes.
It will give a big relief to large number of taxpayers, small taxpayers. In any case, their contribution, the revenue is very insignificant, so we should all actually welcome it.
Right. Mr. Badal, just very quickly, in terms of revenue foregone, in terms of the decisions taken today, I would imagine that roughly my calculation shows that could be between, say, 8 to 9 odd thousand crore rupees. Is that accurate?
Well, I should think so, but what was also brought up in the council that every time, see, it's Shereen, it's like conducting an orchestra, and the orchestra has to produce a very fine sound. You can't be going in for knee-jerk reactions every time there is pressure of elections, there's pressure of some kind of a group, the lottery people are putting pressure, the real estate people are putting pressure. Even if you have to play politics, it's a game of intellect. And what I see in a lot of proposals which come up, they lack the maturity. They've not been very well reflected upon. Whatever the numbers are given, these are notional numbers. And if in the last 3 months, if we calculate, because they tell us it's only 3,000 crores, it's only 500 crores, it's only 600,000 crores. But the cumulative total of, some of these concessions would actually be quite significant.
Okay.
So I'm concerned to death about revenues.
Okay.
I mean, these are what revenues. I heard the finance secretary speak that this month we collected 94 and then it was 96. But these are not the revenues which were expected. Revenues, we are collecting less revenues than we were collecting 2 years back. Collectively, states and Government of India put together. And I've not even accounted for either inflation or GDP growth.
Okay.
So, as a council, we should be worried about, which way we are heading.
Right.
My own concern is that GST Council, I mean, when I enter this chamber, I have just one motive, and that motive is that how does India become one of the leading powers of the world?
Right.
There is no politics involved, there is no pressure involved. We are men of courage, and courage not only to stand up to our enemies, because everybody stands up to one's enemies,
sure,
but the courage to stand up to our friends and associates if necessary.
Yeah.
And the courage to resist public pressure, private greed. And, so this is the game which I see we have not been able to handle the way we could have.
Okay.
GST should have given us almost a 2% increase in GDP.
Yes.
Should have increased our tax revenues. It should have simplified things. Our exports should have become more competitive.
I agree with the objectives, but unfortunately it has boiled down to politics, perhaps not as much within the council, but certainly outside of the council. Mr. Badal, you must admit your party also does make this an election issue. Your party president called it the Gabbar Singh tax. But let me get across to Uday now. Uday, in terms of the decisions taken today, what do you believe is the most significant, and what would you be concerned about? For instance, there are questions being raised about this 1% calamity cess that the council has now ratified for Kerala to impose. It's only on intrastate trade. But the fear is that now that you've opened up the window for the inclusion of one cess, perhaps tomorrow there could be 2, 3 or more. And the idea of the GST was to do away with cesses.
So, on the calamity cess, the issues or the concerns are not only the fact that are we opening a door to include additional cesses to come in, but even at a practical level, it is going to be fairly difficult for people to comply with. The government needs, possibly it would need to be appreciated that everybody has a billing system and IT system.
Yeah.
And the IT system goes about computing tax on a pan-India basis, and given that there was only going to be a one tax applicable, most of the IT systems are not geared to having a separate tax applicable for one single state, and so on and so forth. And so if this needs to be complied with, if correct invoices need to be raised and so on and the like, and compliances have to be done in terms of uploading those invoices, how will that be done? All of will need to be handled now within the next 2-3 months. So that is one.
Okay.
The second is, of course, this entire worry that if one has an additional cess applicable in Kerala, and tomorrow, let's say, another state is allowed to kind of impose not only another cess, but different kind of tax on the supply itself, but different value, those kind of things. The complexity of compliances is
only going to go
significantly. I don't really think that if it is a 0.5 or a 1%, it's
the rate itself is not material, but the fact that
and it's diluting the structure. And it's not a good.
Mr. Badal, you said that you're concerned to death by the shortfall in revenue, but what about something like this? I mean, this was a matter that was referred to a group of ministers. The group of ministers finally gave its go-ahead. It's been pending for a while. But is this the best way forward? And what happens next? I mean, today you've got one state, a legitimate demand. They require funds for rehabilitation, but there could be demands from others as well. What then happens to the fact that this was meant to be one nation, one tax?
Well, I agree with my fellow panelists that some things are non-negotiable. The basic structure of GST, it should not be negotiated with, because otherwise you just open up the floodgates. And in fact, I attended one of the meetings where this was being discussed. Punjab had actually opposed it for the simple reason that in Punjab we don't suffer from natural calamities, except once in a while, whenever there's a war with Pakistan. That's the time we face devastation, but not of some of the coastal states like Odisha and Bengal. Every 6 months, every 1 year, they go in. So it was thought that if some of these calamity-prone states if occasionally, my own feeling was that the Government of India, and especially the NDRF, I don't know whether I'm saying it correctly, but there are some funds available in the calamity relief and in the national disaster relief.
Yes.
We should have compensated Kerala. And if Kerala or any other state is affected by a calamity, I think the entire nation must help out. And they should not be left to their own devices to pick up the pieces.
Okay.
But I agree that we should, some things are non-negotiable, and the principle of GST should not be diluted.
Time for us to head into a break, but when we return, we continue our conversation on the announcements made by the GST Council today. Don't go anywhere.